Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas into clear, actionable insights. Today, we're digging into a really powerful framework for understanding why so many of us are dealing with chronic health issues.
So, here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with what's called the sickness paradox. Then we'll trace the problem back to the gut-blood connection, see how blood sugar adds fuel to the fire, and then, and this is the best part, we'll explore a universal strategy that puts you back in the driver's seat of your own health. And it all picks off with a very modern paradox.
Okay, so let's dive right into that paradox.
I mean, think about it. We have specialists for every single part of the body. We've got incredible drugs, unbelievable technology. And yet, as a society, we just keep getting sicker. Autoimmune diseases, skin problems, metabolic issues, they're all skyrocketing. So what is going on here?
Well, the source material for this explainer from pharmacist Ben Fox suggests a pretty radical shift in how we think about this. Instead of seeing dozens and dozens of different diseases, he says we need to grasp one core principle. The body has a generic way of breaking down.
And this is absolutely crucial. What this means is that conditions that seem totally unrelated, like psoriasis, muscular dystrophy, Hashimoto's, they're not actually separate problems. They're just different symptoms, different flavors of the same fundamental breakdown in the body's biochemistry.
Okay, so if the body breaks down in a generic way, the next question is obvious. Where does it all start? Where's ground zero? Well, according to our source, the answer isn't where most people are looking.
According to pharmacist Ben, the main point of failure isn't in your joints or your skin or your thyroid. It starts in the gut. In fact, he says that there is no chronic health challenge out there that doesn't involve what's called a leaky gut. And this breakdown happens in a really clear 4-step chain reaction. First, processed foods start to damage the super delicate lining of your intestines. This creates tiny little holes, which allow stuff like undigested food, bacteria, and toxins to literally leak directly into your bloodstream. And from there, this contamination travels everywhere, getting dropped off in different tissues and sparking a massive inflammatory response. To really help you picture this, the source uses a brilliant analogy. Think of your bloodstream as this pristine, clean lake. Well, a leaky gut is like a sewage pipe that's been rerouted to dump all its waste 24/7 right into that clean lake. And this leads to a condition the source calls dirty blood. It's a really important concept. This is the state that comes before any cellular disease. The blood itself becomes toxic, and then that toxic blood gets delivered to every single cell, tissue, and organ in your body, basically setting the stage for that breakdown.
But, a leaky gut is just one part of the equation. There's a second, equally powerful factor that really creates the perfect storm for chronic illness.
And that second factor is something called dysglycemia. It just means dysfunctional blood sugar. Now, we're not talking about full-blown diabetes here. We're talking about the state of metabolic stress that almost everybody in the modern world is experiencing. You know that feeling, the constant spikes and crashes in energy? That's it.
Okay, let's just look at the difference here. On one side, you have a healthy metabolism. It's fueled by whole foods. It's in what's called an anabolic or building state. It gives you stable energy for cell repair. But then you have dysglycemia. That's fueled by processed carbs and sugar, and it creates a catabolic or breaking down state. It leads to inflammation and basically starves your cells, even if you're eating plenty of food.
So you see how this comes together? It's this brutal 1-2 punch. You've got toxicity pouring into your blood from a leaky gut, and at the exact same time, your cells are being starved and inflamed by messed up blood sugar. This is the knockout combination that's behind that generic breakdown we talked about at the start. All right, so if the problem is generic, what about the solution? Well, it stands to reason that the solution should be generic too, right?
And this is where things get really, really empowering. It completely reframes the solution. We shift our focus away from a specific disease label and instead move toward a universal strategy to restore the body's fundamental systems. It doesn't matter what your diagnosis is. The road back to health addresses the same root causes.
So what does this universal strategy actually look like? Well, the source material breaks it down into 5 core pillars. The first two, fasting and using an elimination diet, are all about lowering the body's toxic burden. And the next three, supporting digestion, stabilizing blood sugar, and using strategic supplements, are about giving the body the raw materials it needs to finally rebuild. And you know what one of the best parts about this approach is? You don't have to wait months to see if it's working. By doing something as simple as keeping a food diary, you start to connect what you eat with how you feel, often within just 24 to 48 hours. That real-time feedback puts you back in control. You go from feeling helpless to feeling totally empowered.
Okay, let's bring this all home with what is honestly probably the most important piece of this entire framework. It's a fundamental shift in mindset.
The whole philosophy here is built on one core idea. We have so much more control, so much more power over our own body's chemistry than we're ever told. We've kind of been conditioned to think of health as something that just happens to us, something that experts manage. But this framework says, no way, we have immense power through our daily choices. So ultimately, the goal is to stop playing whack-a-mole with symptoms, whether that's a skin rash or joint pain or fatigue, and instead go straight to the source and fix the underlying machine. You're no longer just managing a diagnosis. You're actually correcting the two systems that went offline: digestion and blood sugar.
And that's the final question this explainer leaves you with. It's a pretty simple question, but answering it honestly for yourself could change absolutely everything about how you approach your health. Thanks for digging into this with me.